Okay, hello people out there in internet lands. Tonight on Land Down Under, we are discussing, I'm going to say it wrong, Hyperbole and a half, which I keep calling Hyperbole. Sorry, it's my fault. Learning reading stuff when I was young. Anyway, been fighting that one very hard for the last month. So this was David's pick. And David, this is your second pick or first pick?
First.
First pick. So David's first pick. So yay, David. And we're going to start off with general opinions. So I'm going to throw to David since it was his pick.
Well, I was reading the blog that this was built from before it was actually a book. So not everything was in there, but I actually really enjoyed it. There's some parts of the book. So the book's obviously made of lots of different stories. Some of them I really gel with, some of them I not quite as much. There's a couple in there about depression, which honestly I've read and have a hard time reading again because I empathize with it so much, and it's actually quite upsetting to read sometimes because at the time of writing, the author's obviously still in a really bad place. But there's other ones in there that, like, you know, there's fun stories about dogs, and how the thing I like most about it is the total disconnect between a child's point of view and an adult's point of view. And so when they're being written about by the author, where they're going, this is what I thought of as child, and very obviously, oh my God, I was a complete idiot because I was a child, it's just hilarious. You know, just going, oh yes, and I'm telling this cool story. Oh God, my parents must have been horrified, sort of thing. That's what I really like about it. So yeah, I like it. Like, I hear there's more books which I have not read yet, so I've got to go find them.
Oh, we have it. In fact, hold on. Sorry, I should have prepped with this. There's a second one that has come out. Internets, go get it. Haven't opened it yet. See, the spine is still unbroken. It's just sitting there.
Pristine condition, waiting to be read.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I've got 2 other people in the house who would kill me if we didn't open it together.
Awesome. Okay, Elizabeth.
Mixed feelings about. Oh,
no, you're good. You're good.
No, I'm good. I had some mixed feelings about the book. I like some of it is very relatable and very insightful, and then some parts of it felt quite uncomfortable. The first 2 essays really did not sit well with me, and that kind of coloured me for the rest of the book. And plus the artwork's not really so much my jam. But it was an interesting read.
Awesome. Bobby?
So I, like David, I started with this when it was a blog. So I found it very interesting when the book first came out to read it and see like what order they put the essays, the posts, if you will, in, because they're not in the order they were published in the blog. In the blog, it was very organic, and she used a lot of it to kind of talk about and put words to what she was thinking of in the moment. She was going through a lot of stuff, and you can see that in some of these essays. But so because of that, I did think it was always very interesting how they set up the progression in the book with the different collections. Yeah, and I agree, like the artwork is by no means refined whatsoever. It's someone who, it's meant, but like at the same time for her, with her, the way she writes, if you read her blog, the text itself and the individual just blog posts that don't include the comics, it really seems to match, I think, her personality quite a lot. Like she's like, I'm not perfect. I'm not striving for perfection. I'm striving for what I feel, kind of thing. So which was always very interesting to me. Like, so I suspect that I have, because I've kind of grown up with this blog in some respects, like I probably make allowances, I guess, for the author more than other people come to it cold or don't have that history with it. But yeah, going back, so there's been a span of about 5 to 7 years where I haven't read this book. So I read it when it came out. I bought a copy of it for David when I was like in Melbourne because it was published, and so I brought it back as a gift because we were dating, and I thought, oh, cool boy would like the book I know he adores the blog of. but I didn't like, I read it a bunch and then I haven't read it for ages, went back and was reading it and I was like, oh, this is hitting me completely different now, which was very interesting. There were bits that I remember liking a lot and I was like, no, not this time, not today, sort of thing. So that was, I thought, very interesting as well, but I still enjoyed reading it, like even just for that self-reflection as well.
Awesome. Lisa?
Yeah, I didn't like the book, but I think it might be an important book to read for people who don't understand what clinical depression is, because she's clearly someone who's suffering at times quite severely from clinical depression, and that gives an insight because there's so many misconceptions around it, and some of the stuff she writes makes that clear. It wasn't a good book for me to read personally, and I probably wouldn't have chosen to read it because I don't need to be educated about that stuff. But yeah, I think it's still probably, those bits particularly were very hard, and I think that was probably a good, as I said, it's a good book for people who don't have an insight to see that. Yeah, and there's definitely a few humorous stories in there as well. I do love animals, so there's definitely some funny stories, or perhaps slightly disturbing funny stories about her dogs. But yeah, so.
Awesome. So for me, I am like Bobby and David. I read the blog back in the day and I remember it being quite hilarious. So when David picked this, I was very, very excited because I was like, oh my God, I never did read the book. That's great. Let's do this. Oh my God, I am miserable reading this book. It was nothing like I remembered the blog being like, and yet I'm like, the only thing that's changed really is me. And the roughly 10 years since I was reading it. And so I was like, okay, so either I've changed or the times have changed and this kind of humor wasn't working for me anymore. And I do remember actually, and I think that it's really good that you said that, Lisa, I remember reading the depression stories on the blog, and it was actually how I came to understand clinical depression. And I was like, yeah, I get this now. So that's why one of the major things that was formative for me from reading that blog back in the day. Reading them again was painful, knowing so much more about it now. But yeah, I actually found most of it quite mean, both to herself and to who she was trying to make jokes about. I only really found two funny. And please don't get me started on the dog stories because, anyway. So I suppose we should get to talking about things. David, which way would you like to go first to talk about?
Oh, which one of the, what specifically? This is why I was, yeah, my brain is just nowhere.
Just pick a story that you remember and we can chat about it.
Okay. Let's think. Which story I want? Okay. So, the one where they're stuck in the woods, because out of all of the ones that I've got, that one actually worked a lot better for me because I had a very similar experience. Some of my favorite stories aren't in there.
The only one I marked.
Right. So I saw your story, right? Yeah. And mainly because I've been there. I've been that parent that's leading, that's trying to be an adult and not freak out the kids when they're when you're lost in the scary forest and you're like, we're all going to die. Yay, let's make a game of it. Give me more pine cones. And the kids just don't get it, right? They're trying, they're happy, they really want to play, but after a while it's like, yeah, Mom, this isn't real, this isn't fun anymore. Let's go home. And it's like, and you're like, the kids are picking up on it. Oh God, what are we going to do? So it's very I find it hilarious for that, just because of the position that it's in. I really like that, just because of where the storytelling is coming from. The fact that this is a kid that was growing up with ADHD, very distractible, very running around, very excitable, lots of energy, and which reminds me a lot of me. And I could just imagine me I'm over picking up pine cones. I got bored of that after 5 minutes. can we find a game that's actually a game and stuff, and still not picking up the fact we were lost in the forest. So I love that one. It's tragedy of errors, but still hilarious.
Again, one of those stories that's very relatable.
I think it's particularly good because you said something before, Elizabeth, that it's that sort of comparison of her giving her child's eye perspective, but it's also being written with her now adult perspective. So it's really sort of got that duality of the two things going on in it, which I quite like. That's good. All right, who wants to pick another one?
Hang on, back up.
Oh,
was there more that you wanted to say about it, Mel? Because it was the one that you had marked. So clearly
I marked it because I'd literally so much laughing and snorting. I marked it because it was the only one that really had a proper effect on me. I believe there was another one later that was
Why I'll Never Be an Adult, because that's the one that always sticks out in my head.
No, it was Something Came Into the Kitchen.
Oh, the goose.
The goose, that was it. It was the goose one. That one was the only other one that I thoroughly enjoyed. All the others were either this is mean, you clearly don't know what the hell you're doing, or this is just making me miserable and sad. So no, I didn't have anything else to add on to it other than 2 thumbs up for that story. Someone want to pick a different one?
So the one that I know that David, please tell me if this actually isn't in the book and I'm misremembering. The one about This Is Why I'll Never Be an Adult. Now, to be fair, this doesn't resonate with me the same way it did when I read it the first time, particularly when it was first published. It's the one where she talks about there's a lot of memes that have come out of this particular
Is this the one with the what's her name meme?
Yeah. The clean all the things. Yeah. So, and it was but like, to be fair, I was in my early 20s when I remember reading this, and so there were bits of this I like, and I have this like want to strive for achievement kind of personality. So I really resonated with this at the time. Reading back on it now, I'm like, yeah, that was me in my early 20s and in my teenage years, where I would be so excited and I'd have so much enthusiasm and I would go for the goal and go for the goal and go for the goal. And burnout wasn't a thing that we knew about yet. So and particularly young women and young girls, you're encouraged to just go for all of the achievements because that's like out of panic, that's how they raised you. You need all the achievements because who knows who's going to listen to you, and you can just throw all the achievements and they can't deny you, sort of thing. So this resonated a lot with me because she goes through this thing of, this is what I have to do to be an adult. I have to be organized. I have to do X, Y, Z every day. I need to be doing these things in order. I need to be doing them tidily, whatever. And then she gets to a point where she's like, no, F this internet, and being distracted by the internet, and that's way more fun. And I got it. Like, yeah. So, yeah, I think it resonates. It's still, when I read it, I just think of myself when I was younger, but it makes me smile and makes me giggle for that reason. Like, it might not necessarily put her in the best light, maybe, but I still quite like that one because I think it has a lot of relatable bits to it. And I still go reach for the memes too, for certain things, where if I'm like, no, I have to have the enthusiasm for it. I think at one point there was towards the end of one of my human rights law masters, where I was so tired, and I knew I was tired, but I had to have the enthusiasm and I had to have the energy to finish the last paper. And I put up the image of her do all the things, because it at least helped me through the last 25 pages of whatever I was writing.
I think that was probably one of the stories that I liked the best as well. One of the essays that I liked the best as well, because of that relatability, for sure.
What about another one from you, Elizabeth?
I also found the essay on motivation quite relatable in a slightly less way, because I feel like I personally am a little bit less like that, but also very much like that at the same time. So, and also I think that it kind of ties into the essay on This Is Why I Will Never Be an Adult quite well. They very much dovetail together, and the essay on motivation, like she talks about how she uses shame to kind of motivate herself, and like obviously in an unhealthy sort of coping strategy way, which is in the subtitle of the book. And I think that actually unlocked for me why I found the first essay so uncomfortable, when she's writing letters to her younger selves, and it does seem very shaming, and I found it quite uncomfortable, and not very funny. So it was interesting that kind of the essay on motivation has this wonderful insight, and yet there are clearly sort of blind spots as well that are evident to see.
I wonder if that's why with it being on the blog, you have a little bit more context at the time of when she's writing it. That doesn't mean that it necessarily would read any better now, but like at the time, the text that gets included, because it's like what she does is she just illustrates her blog post. She has a block of text, and then there's an image, and then another big block of text, and there's an image. And they did abridge and only keep certain things for the book itself. So I do wonder. And so, she went through massive burnout and some other personal issues, like real struggles after that book came out, about self-care and self-love, I guess, and support and things as well. So I wonder if
none of which surprises me from reading it. You're just like, absolutely. Oh my God, woman, you're a mess. You need help.
Yeah.
Actually, like so because this is all posted publicly on the internet, just to add what is from my memory a bit of context, these stories are all out of order and not in the order they're written. The author has ADHD. The author spent a year or so trying to get medication after moving interstate, and eventually just gave up. And that's the point that this book was written and published. The essays on depression did not come in the middle. They came at the end, and I'm pretty sure the second part was written for the book because they needed to be a filler. This book was published and put together at the lowest point of their life, as far as I know it, when they were writing this stuff. The stuff is reordered because it starts off bright and happy and stuff like that, and then just keeps going in darker and darker and darker. And to publish that as a humorous sort of story wouldn't actually come along with that. So most of the stories I remember, like from reading the blog, were actually, a lot earlier on. They were published very often, and then they're getting down to once every few months, once every 6 months, once every year, and then the book comes out a couple of years later. But it was still the really dark time for the author, and I think that the selected essays, right, a good word, are actually probably a bit reflective of that. It's not what reading back, it's not what I remember of going through the blog, and I went through the blog as well because some of my favorite stories are not in there, such as Wolfpack, which involves a bunch of like tiny little girls like attacking a teenager boy in the woods because he doesn't realize Wolfpack is a game they take very seriously. But I think I actually found it hard to read the second time, and I was actually disappointed by I really was disappointed that like the stories that actually really would uplift me and I thought were hilarious were actually really, the ones in here were quite dark. Yeah, I don't like, my attitude towards dogs is very different, I think. Do
you think that it's been a disservice to her story and the experience for them to have shuffled them around the way they have? I mean, I came into this fairly cold with just vague memories of when I read the blog back in the day, which I definitely read the depression stuff, so I was there towards the end and everything, and I'd been reading for years at that, or however long for that point. And I don't remember, I remember being really wow at the depression stuff, and that made a real emotional impact at the time. but I don't remember the feelings that I had after reading this being there this time around. And so I'm wondering if perhaps some of that comes from the fact that some of the stories have been left out, but also that reordering means that you don't get that opportunity to experience her differently in the earlier stages.
I think it very likely could be. I mean, I'm flipping through the new version. I was looking to see if it was edited by the same person. I can't find the editor right now to see if it's been handled by the same people. But this looks like, matching this with the blog, this seems to be going in reverse order. So the most recent post is number 1, but it's going in chronological order otherwise. So it'd be interesting to see how this reads compared to the other one. But I do think, yeah, maybe that's also probably a downfall. If you're taking something that's grown organically online and then you're trying to put it into something that's very static and there's no context whatsoever, that like the yellow book, the first one, didn't have any preface on it about like anything about the author. It was just it kind of felt a bit to me like she had a big following and everyone wanted something from her because her fans missed her and she'd been gone for so long, and so she just kind of, like a last-ditch effort of doing something, managed to find someone who would put it into a book for her because it was going to make money, and then they just published it. And if she wasn't doing very well, she probably wouldn't have had any clue to even suggest, actually, this is kind of an archive of what my life was, and that's what resonated with people. We should keep it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think if you'd bought it at the time, like soon after the blog, you've been reading the blog, you probably wouldn't necessarily even read it straight through. You would go to bits and pieces and read your favorites and things on those lines.
And it'd be much more fresh in your mind as well about what was going on and the backstory, I suspect. So I don't know if even reading it now at this age, if I still would really enjoy as many things, even going through and checking the backstory. Maybe not. Maybe it still would hit me different because I'm older and have experienced more. But yeah.
I was wondering whether maybe that's why they put the letters to the other selves first as like a kind of introduction to her as a person. Unfortunately, like the overall tone of it is just kind of put me off and kind of coloured the rest of the book for me. So it wasn't like a successful introduction in some respects, but I can understand why they might have put it first.
Yeah, especially when you don't have like if you've read some of the other things, maybe you're giving the author the benefit of the doubt that really they're just they're making fun of themselves in much more of a lighthearted way that comes across. I guess it would come across very harshly if you're reading it cold, because they really are dissing themselves. But I'm pretty sure it is them really just poking lighthearted fun at themselves only through the context of other stuff which isn't in the book. Also,
okay, because that was something I wasn't sure about, because I know that people who have very severe depression will say things like that, and other people will think, oh, they're just joking about themselves, but they're not joking, they're deadly serious. So I couldn't, without that other context, I couldn't pick up whether this person actually is able to use humor and lightheartedness to pick themselves up or not. It's not clear in the context of the book. So thank you for saying that, because that gives me a little more insight into where she's coming from, Yeah.
I mean, in the last essay in the book, she's literally wandering through Plato's cave talking about her, searching for her own identity. So I guess that and its book ended by like the one on motivation, and then that one, which is just a very different tone from what I remember reading. The God of Cake is much closer to what some of the other ones were like.
Yeah.
Oh God, the God of Cake.
Yeah, no, I'm like, I don't know that one. Let me go look it up.
That was the one where that's the one involving where it's basically just a story of a small child trying to get hold of a cake. That's all there is. There's nothing deeper. It's just cake.
Yeah.
Just cake. But it also made me want to really get very upset as her mother about that cake.
Well, it's from her point of view as a kid. That is exactly what
I know. I'm not saying it wasn't realistic. I was just like, oh my God.
Also, actually, you know what? I had a 5-year-old child that was around that I was a bit responsible for. I remember reading God of Cake and thinking this is exactly what would happen at a birthday party. Right. I would also really hope that I wouldn't sound quite so harsh, but knowing that from the 5-year-old's perspective, it probably sounds that harsh. And also that is exactly what some 5-year-olds would do. They would be so, yeah.
What about this was her mother being harsh? I didn't find
No, if you look at the way it's drawn, the mother looks like she's being very scary. And
right.
That's all I mean. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, from the 5-year-old's perspective, that's probably exactly what it looks like because they have no balance, but.
The mother is also so obviously had so many years of this and is exhausted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When it comes
she's exhausted. I think she portrays that perfectly in the facial expressions. Like, you can just see the level of exhaustion her mother has over this.
Yeah.
And not only in this essay, but throughout the book.
Yeah.
The art's really interesting in the book because originally all of the things were actually just done with a mouse in Microsoft Paint, which is where the really distorted sort of stuff comes. The actual art in the book is really a great site, has had a great deal more effort put into it than the original ones. But it's trying to stay true to it. I could imagine, apparently that was a very difficult thing, trying to bring it from a blog where someone is literally just going, I'm going to do my best with no artistic skill in Microsoft Paint and just throw it up there. And that's as close as we get. There's actually blurring to show lens effects in some of these pictures, which is not Microsoft Paint. The reason that one of the dogs has got what looks like stubble is just because that was the easiest way to add dog hair, like with Microsoft Paint. So
I was always very impressed with what she managed to do with Microsoft Paint, in all honesty.
Yeah.
The dogs in particular, she really does give you like a good indication of the breeds of dogs from the artwork.
I used to have to make my own cards for teaching English when I was in Japan because I wasn't allowed to use Japanese at all. So I had to draw pictures to convey what my meaning behind things. So I'd make all these little cards up, and this art style actually reminds me so much of doing that because I'd have to do stick figure-y type drawings because I didn't have time, the skills, or the resources to make it look good. I just needed to convey the impression. By the end of that, I was extremely good at a stick figure. I'm always sort of I know that the art is simple, but it is very good at conveying its meaning.
Sorry?
Poor dogs. I feel for the dogs in the story. I have too much empathy for the dogs because I just get a dog and just go, no, you're just a stupid dog. And to call him a stupid dog, I couldn't do that.
Yeah, I never liked that, but that always made me really frustrated. At the same time, and this is not me saying it's ever okay. No. When she was doing that, I remember thinking, yeah, you're one of those people that we could never actually hang out when your dogs are present, because that makes me really grouchy when people just I make up voices for my cats and I narrate out what they're saying, but I never call them stupid cat. No, troll cat, yes, but also with giggles and never in an angry way. I knew too many people like that growing up. It made me angry.
Yeah, but she doesn't understand her own emotions, really. She hasn't, very clear to me in some of the stories that she's never had the opportunity or the training to be able to, and it's really hard to do when you have ADHD that's not being managed, to actually stop and reflect on, and twist around and take a different perspective on an emotion. So I really did get that this person therefore probably can't manage the emotions for the dogs either, resulting in the dogs being quite stressed and out of control a lot of the time, because you really do have to be able to do that. Yet she really loves her dogs. It's quite clear that she does really care for them and care about them, you know.
Yeah.
But
Part of me always thought maybe it was performative, her narrating her interactions with the dogs like that, because she would like, maybe some part of her was thinking, oh, if I do that, I'll get more giggles online. I don't know. Like part of me really hopes that that's what it is, like that it was souped up for that. But you probably
It's one
are.
of the things I often thought throughout the process of reading it. I was like, how much of this is actually what's going on versus I'm emphasizing things for the humor and the that side of things, because I'm like, I can't tell, and I'm really hopeful that it is happening.
is the title sort of speaking to that a little bit?
Probably.
Hyperbole and a half.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
One would assume so, but
Apart from the goose, I've seen a photo of the goose.
isn't there a photo of the goose in here?
Yeah, there's
Yes.
a couple.
It's actually in there.
There's actually a photo of the
Included
goose.
photos. Yep.
Included photos on the
Right.
last page of the goose story. There's 12 of them.
Also, yes, geese are terrifying.
Yes, I really did emphasize that. I've met geese, and I thought that was a very realistic depiction of what happens when there's a goose in your house.
I feel sorry for her partner. Is it Duncan? I assume he's her partner.
Yes, Duncan. Sorry.
Right.
Have character names written down. Am organized.
You are organized.
Yeah. I mean, for the goose story, I feel sorry for Duncan.
Yes.
Anyway, she did a good job of making it seem very horror movie, which I enjoyed.
Excuse me. Yes, the goose story is definitely 2 thumbs up. Lisa, we didn't ask you. Is there a story you wanted to talk about?
I had actually also been thinking about the God of Cake and how it was like reading 2 different stories at once. It really was. It was like completely seeing it from the child's perspective of that one-track mind. And I'm thinking to myself, she could have only been about 3 in that story, or maybe 4. To be so one track and so unable to step out and go, maybe I am moved by the way this is impacting my mother or grandmother, but also then seeing the mother's and to some extent the grandmother's perspective. So it really felt like I was reading 2 stories at once.
I felt a similar sort of feeling for the party where she had the was it surgery?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That was a wonderful story about like how kids can be total assholes and put their parents in really bad situations. Just because of no context, just the kids.
Yeah. So I have to ask this question because I don't know what's going on here, and it could be because I've got a library copy. On the dedication page, it's I don't know if it's showing up. Something has been coloured in, and I don't know if it's on the original or whether it was a library copy thing.
I suspect it's a library copy thing.
All right.
Now?
So there, that's why.
Okay. Oh, there it is. That's what it says underneath there. That's why somebody's done that. Got it.
So it being a library, are you then obligated to actually just print out a label and put over what it actually says?
I did think that it must have had a swear underneath it, but I was like, why bother? Like, if you're somebody who can't handle swear words, this is not the book for you. But anyway,
Is there that much swearing in it?
I don't remember
it's
that.
not about the swearing, it's more the content
yes,
that I
there is.
mean.
No, there definitely is.
Maybe some
there you
very
go.
misguided person thought that they were going to give this to a kid because it's a picture book. I hope they didn't, though.
I really hope they didn't. Let me check. It's put in the library in the YA section.
And having seen young adults reading it, they find it hilarious. This is one of why our copy ended up being shredded
3 copies of the, or we had 3 copies. I bought the first one, and that one literally fell to
Thank you.
pieces. No, that's not that one, Lisa. That's book number 3. That's version number 3. Because the very first one I got, our kid read it so much that it was falling apart, and so I bought another one. And then when we moved here, the first one fell apart so much that we just got a third one, and don't know where version number 1 went because it's probably in pieces all over the place.
I know that at one point it got lent to one of their friends, and I was like, oh God, do I have to apologize to their mother?
Given the friend, I don't think so, because
I know, no.
Yeah, no.
But it did make me pause. And
yeah, you did. And then we're like, no, we know those parents. They probably already know about this. Or if they don't, they'll just sit down and have a chat with their kid about what their kid learned from it. And then they'll be fine. Like, because that's what they care about. It's either going to be the principal, it's going to be the parent that's the school principal, or it's going to be the parent who, I don't know, the musician, I don't remember, the leather worker.
the first, but yeah.
It was the first. Yeah, no, her whole thing was, if my kid wants to read it, I just need to know what's in it, and then if I need to talk to them about it afterwards, we'll do that. So
yeah, it turns out that kids just swap books by themselves, and that parents have no control over this whatsoever.
Yep. Yeah, that whole
Considering
thing.
in year 8 what I was reading out loud to my friends underneath these stairs at school, yeah, you should be worried. Sorry, that was for any parents out there who are watching. I know everybody here is well aware.
Yeah, it's true. Just, assume that they're already reading it, and just, check in and see how they're handling it. That's about all you can do.
It's more important that you are able to talk about it than if they feel ready to read it, probably they're going to be reading it regardless of you dictating either way. So better to be able to talk about it.
Yeah.
Which my mother couldn't. So oh, that's okay. It's all right. I've grown past the need.
Probably not.
Have a book club, right?
Yeah, that's why you have a. Sorry, not you. We have a book club because we're too old to talk to our parents about it.
Oh dear.
Oh, imagine talking to your parents about anything written in a Kit Roca book or a single book. No, probably not so great.
The worst bit was that the book that I was reading was my mother's.
No, I was reading my dad's copy of Stranger in a Strange Land at like 11. So he was quite happy to talk to me about the books if I really wanted to. But
this book, the story I'm going to choose is The Hot Sauce Tobacco.
The hot sauce what?
Tobacco.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And the story itself basically horrified me, because the idea of a child that young eating such hot sauce, just like, wrong, very much they should not be doing that. But like hot sauce, like mild hot sauce, fine, but really hot sauce, big problem there. Anyway, but I related to the fact that as soon as somebody knows that you're interested in something, people just can't seem to stop buying you the thing. Like, why does it never happen with books? Like, they'll oh, you've got pugs. Here, let me buy you everything that you could ever find that's got a pug on it. I walked past a cushion and it had an ugly pug on it, so I will get it for you. But not a book that I actually collect. So I just relate to that. But as a child, it is considerably worse than as an adult.
I have a theory about why that is. Because people don't want, like, if it's something that they know that you are kind of a connoisseur of, not something that you just merely like or really enjoy, but that you're kind of a connoisseur of, they might be intimidated to get you something. Because people don't.
Well, I know that's why they don't buy me books, because they're too worried that I've already read the book, or that they don't know what to pick me in that. That's fine. I can deal with that. But please don't buy me the thing that I don't actually collect.
But maybe you don't collect that one because you're too busy collecting books, but you'd still like to have all the stuff for the other thing too, right?
Do you know how many pug things I have in my house that I keep there because I'm being nice? And the worst bit is because I have those things and I'm so nice to do something about it, people think I collect pug things and buy me more. And it's like, it's fine when it's not something that has to be put on display. That's easy enough. That's fine. But they're almost always something that needs to be put on display.
Now start talking about it as if you're a connoisseur of pug paraphernalia.
Yeah, so,
And people will stop because you'll intimidate.
See, I have a friend who is a connoisseur of pug stuff. Like, she has a lot. And people don't seem to stop buying it for her. In fact, they seem to be very deliberately helping. I went to America and I saw this fantastic pug that can't possibly be in Australia because it was a gift store in America. So I bought it for you back. It cost me extra money for my weight of baggage because it's made of stone, but I still bought it for you.
Wow.
Not me, thank God. This one was not me. I love people. I love my friends.
Also, book gift cards, entirely underrated present. Please,
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
buy your book lover a book card.
Yes. Yes.
Yep, 100%. Buy, like, it's Australia, buy a Dimix card, we're good to go. Awesome.
Yep.
Kuna Kinea.
Donate to the local animal shelter and tell them you did it on their behalf. They'll love you for it. Like,
that's what we had.
And even if they
the
don't, you'll
wedding.
feel good, and so will the animals.
yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Anyway, sorry. That was Melanie having a mild vent. Things might have started shifting to Frenchies, and I'm like, God, how do I nip this?
That one actually made me feel a bit uncomfortable, that story, mainly because I've seen kids do that. Like, I've seen my kid like do that. Like, I've seen all sorts of kids do that where they're like getting attention from adults and they'll just smile and nod through anything. And I'm just like, at what point did you not stop and think maybe the kid just wants the attention and praise? Like, but
Maybe.
We all make mistakes as parents, and when the kids are literally saying, no, this is great, then what are you going to do? Like,
Maybe, I don't know if it's a primary school teacher thing, but I just don't do that. Like, I don't know, I'm too used to giving the kids attention without them needing to do anything to get my attention. I don't know. I've never really encountered it with kids that often. Like,
It's different. I think it's different with parents because the kids at school have a different expectation with the relationship with their teacher. Like, automatically they're having to share you with everyone else in the class. Automatically
I wasn't thinking in the classroom, because that immediately is a totally different circumstance anyway. I'm controlling when I'm giving them attention. Totally different thing.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about, like, I know lots of kids. I'm good with kids. I go to a friend's place who has a kid. Pretty much my first thing is I want to play with them. I'm sorry, talking to adults is hard.
It's because it's the novelty. Yeah, it's for you. It's the novelty of it's the kid and they're fun. Whenever it's the parent with the kid, you're with them all the time. You want some time to talk to the adults and not have to use, like easier, smaller words sometimes. And the kids, you love them to death, but they're going to come and they're going to try and get your attention, especially when they're really young, because they might be bored or they just don't understand that it's okay to let you go do something else, that you don't stop loving them. Like, yeah.
Whereas I'm probably there as a novelty and therefore and enjoy kids, so I'm happy giving them attention immediately. I'm like, you want to show me all your toys? Let's go. I want to see every single one.
Weeks in between to refill all of your spoons for children.
I like kids. I might not want to have kids, but I love kids.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's just you get extra time. You walk in with a suitcase full of spoons for that child. Parents never get to refill it that much.
That's exactly true. And I'm also like the ultimate auntie sort of thing. So I'm just like, I'm like, oh, I get to come to your house and see your kid. I'm not against this. Please bring me over. Oh, and this is the thing too I find absolutely hilarious about that particular situation. I am always offering to babysit for people. No one ever takes me up on it anymore. Like, it used to happen when I was really, really young, or when my sister first had my nephew and stuff. But nobody takes me up on it nowadays. I'll be like, my cousin moved like a couple of suburbs over from Perth, no other family in the area or anything. And I went to see her. We're not super close, but we're close enough. And she has 2 young kids. I'm like, we're not that far away. I am very happy to babysit anytime. I'll happily come over and spend the evening so you guys can go out. Never called me once. I'm sad about it to this day.
I've had the same thing, only I'm assuming that that's because some guy kind of says, I'm happy to babysit your kids anytime you want, and the vibe people get is, that's okay, that's creepy, okay.
Well, you can come here and babysit anytime.
Thank you very much. I will admit that generally speaking, I do prefer that there is some proximity to my home.
It's in the same state is good, yeah.
Mostly because at the end I am ready to go back and recharge my spoons because I've usually been very full on for that period.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway, any other stories anybody wanted to talk about? We've covered a fair few of them. All right. Did anybody have anything else they wanted to bring up?
Has anyone heard of the author more recently?
So she put out this year, they've done she's done a second book. So it's a compilation of new stuff. I actually stopped following the blog a couple of years after the book came out, just because my life got too crazy. I did not have time to follow the blog. I needed things that were in audio format because I did not have time to sit and read. So I have no clue what's in here. I have no idea. But I heard something about, I think 2 or 3 years ago, she did kind of come up for air and say, oh, I'm fine. Actually, things are going a lot better. I'm getting a handle on stuff. We've moved somewhere else. And it sounded like she was doing a lot better. Now, I don't know if the reason why she went silent again is because things dipped again. But I know she at least made a point of telling everyone who checked the blog that that some of the stuff that when she left the last time that she had explicitly said she was having trouble with, she seemed to have a handle on, because she had she had a doctor. She was living in, I think it was Utah or Montana the first time, and she could not get healthcare because I'm pretty sure it was Utah, because it has something to do with doctors don't want to prescribe you medication because that's, in contention with the fact that they're Mormon or whatever. She made some kind of comment about that. I don't know how true that is for where she was, but yeah. So it sounded like she might be doing better. It'll be interesting to see.
She may have stopped posting after that because she just really wanted to give everybody an update, but wasn't really planning to restart.
Absolutely.
And like the last few years has been a lot, so.
Oh yes.
The book that sorry.
No, go ahead, David.
The book that you've got there was originally meant to be published in 2015 and was delayed several times. It only published at the end of last year.
Okay.
And there's been a lot of family tragedy and things like that. So.
Okay.
And honestly, maybe the author's grown a lot since then, and has different types of stories to tell, because I'm certainly not the person I was in my early 20s. Well, actually, I am the person I was in my early 20s, but I have a bit more patience than I did then.
I think the other thing that when you take such a big, long break, coming back to a blog that was in a very different thing, you probably want to use different art style, different ways of doing things, that sort of stuff. And a lot of you get this a lot of the time with YouTubers as well, when they try to change how they're doing things. And the audience really splits over it all, and sometimes not in a good way. So they almost have to reestablish themselves entirely at that point. So that can be hard.
I'm trying to find a date on this blog post. That's the one, that's entry number 1 in the book. Oh, it's 2020. So it was delayed a few times, but they have added in stuff. Oh, thanks, David. He's put a link in the chat.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So this one was in, where did it go? I just saw the date. September 2020 is.
Oh my God, endometriosis as well. Sorry. She underwent major surgery for stage 4 endometriosis in 2013.
Ow.
Then yes, it's just I would never post the internet ever again if I had a bad couple of years like this, I think.
Oh yeah, she's definitely moved. She's not in Utah, Montana anymore. She's in Oregon. Oregon at least has some form of state-supported healthcare before Obamacare. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Jesus, this woman has been through so much.
Yeah.
Well, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on the second book when you get to it, Bobby and David. And to hear about like what kinds of stories she's telling, because it sounds like she's been through a lot since she published this book. So
I've got it on a hold from the library, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be reading it after this one. I'm sort of a bit trepidatious.
I think you just give it a flick through.
I'll give it a flick through. I read this one before me. In fact, when I brought this one home, he just went and it was gone. He then promptly told me afterwards, I don't think you're going to have a good time. He was very right. So yeah, probably what'll happen is I'll give him the second one and let him tell me whether or not I'll be okay with it.
That sounds like a good strategy.
Yeah, because we know Barbara cannot get a handle on what you like and don't like. I swear, sometimes I pick things and I'm like, Mel, there's got to be something in here I think Mel will like, clearly, and then it still hits wrong. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah. I never actually used to think that I was that picky. Somehow or other, I find I am now.
I don't know, like, I don't know that maybe it's not that you're picky, it's just that we have very different ways of describing, like use the same words to describe very different things. I don't know what it is. Like
you and I have very different taste. That I have definitely figured out. Yeah.
No, that for sure. But I try to be really careful before I suggest something to you, or at least if I suggest it, say there's these things that happened, or
let's put it this way, Bobby. I follow quite closely almost everybody's Goodreads posts when they mark what they've read and what they're interested in things. I would probably say I'd be lucky if 1 in 100 out of what you post interests me.
But the thing is, usually the things I suggest to you are not the things that are on my Goodreads. The things on my Goodreads are stuff from this like 1 or 2 podcasts that I listen to, because I never know what to get, and those seem to help be good. They seem to give me good suggestions. The other stuff, like I tend to get from book club, so which is probably why the other stuff that I enjoy, you've already suggested to me because it comes from you anyway.
You don't have to worry about it. I've got heaps of people suggesting things to me. It's all good. And I love that we have different tastes. I think that's one of the best things about the book club.
No, I just think it's hilarious that I cannot get a read on what it is you like.
Yeah, so in reflection, my pick for December that was meant to be light, easy, and upbeat. I'm sorry. I should have reread it first.
At least it was a fast read, and I appreciated the bright colours.
Yes. Admittedly, David, when you told me what you picked, I did the same thing that you thought, and I was like, light, funny for December. I had that exact reaction.
Yes, that was exactly what I was going for. My memory of reading those blog posts, not the actual collected book, which on reflection is probably not what I was actually going for.
We all have our things. It's fine. Like I think that it's probably one of those things that it's like when you rewatch an old movie from many, many years ago, and you remember it being really wonderful and amazing. And sometimes when you rewatch that movie, you're able to put aside all the things that are difficult and you can just thoroughly enjoy it still. And sometimes it visits the suck fairy and it no longer works for you.
There was a really great Twitter thread that Elizabeth either retweeted on Twitter or you put in the book club. I don't know. I found it from you though. And it was someone going through and talking about how they have a very strong filter for certain types of things that get included in books. So for instance, they go back a certain number of years and they're reading books and they're like, oh no, this I remember the things that were really good about it were these things, and they completely have forgotten that there was quite a lot of either like misogyny or something else. They filtered it out because they were focused on the things that they really enjoyed. But that leads to the issue of when they try and tell someone else about it and suggest they read them, they tell them about all the good things, and not intentionally, but have completely forgotten the other things. And then they're visited by this horrible guilt because their friend reads it and is really upset and is like, "What's wrong with you?"
Yeah. I think I've experienced that exactly with the Perm books.
Yep. I can't read those anymore. Like, I had a bit of trouble to begin with, but at least with the Melanie trilogy, when I was reading it, I was like, yeah, you're meant to be painted as a kid. Like, I get it. But yeah, I went back a few years ago, I was trying to reread some of the other ones, and I was like, this is really icky. I can't do it again. Okay.
No. I think your bar moves too. Like not just your tolerance, but also your understanding. So
yeah, but I mean, I have had that issue with some books where I've read them even now, and I've read them and I was like, this was so good, suggested to someone, and then they come back to me going, why would you give this to me? There was this, and this, didn't you remember this? And I was like, no. I went back and read it and my brain goes, no, that was there, but I just didn't focus on it for whatever reason.
Yeah, I don't recommend anything that's not a recent read, like within the last 5 years nowadays.
Probably a good idea for me. As a few years ago, a few weeks ago, I was asked what my favorite movies were, or a favorite movie, and it's kept on going through them in my head. And 20 years ago, I was absolutely sure what my favorite movies are. Only I don't say those these days because I've rewatched them since, and I'm like, I can't stand that anymore. Or I missed out on how incredibly naive and like condescending the like author of the story was. And that really used to resonate. And now it just makes me feel sad and like angry at myself for even liking that movie. Like, so now I've got to go through it. See, the thing is, I haven't updated my Goodreads list in about 10 years. Like there's stuff where I've added to it. And it's just like some of those stories I really love or really help me. And there's other stuff in there where I'm like, I don't like burning books, but I would not recommend that to people who, I don't know, were trying to form their own opinions of the world lest they catch something. Like,
yeah, I think we've all been there. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap us up. So thank you for anybody who managed to watch all of this. You're impressive, and we wish to give you a gold star. Please make sure you write comments underneath that tell us what you thought, or, if you're from the book club, like in the Slack. And next month, we are reading Karina's pick, which is My Sister, the Serial Killer by, Oyinkan. No, definitely wrong.
Sorry, it's a Nigerian name, I think.
Yeah, I apologize, but I'm pretty sure the last name is Braithwaite. Well, very close to that. I apologize for my terrible pronunciation. Elizabeth, save me. Can you see it?
I have not chased it down on Goodreads yet, so you're on your own now.
Okay. Anyway, My Sister, the Serial Killer. It's reasonably popular in book spaces, so I'm pretty sure you'll find the right one. It'll be fine. And we'll be talking about that in January, so we'd love to see you then. Bye, everyone.
Bye.